So I always try to call balls and strikes and be incredibly accurate about it. And Dune, the second film, Dune 2, performed incredibly well. There's no denying it. Denis Villeneuve's film, it struck a chord with fans that was, well, extraordinary. And it encouraged people to go to the theaters to see it again and again. It also encouraged the studio to leave the film in theaters for an extended period of time. And I say that because it's still running and it has now had its digital release, which means it's widely available. And you're going to start seeing it on streaming platforms and things like that in the near future. And I anticipate that it will be sought after for the nature of the film. What I do have trouble with is some things we're going to talk about Dune 3 and some very serious problems that are going to, well, enter into the conversation. But we'll start off with a little more praise before we dive into that. And, of course, according to the headline here, Dune Part 2 continues a global box office rampage, despite the looming digital release. Well, yes, that's true. And for occasionally, very occasionally, Collider will get one very right. Speaking of getting things right, I try to get things right on my own merch website, beachpunk.us. So if you're looking for amazing gear, including some exclusive items that are, well, were available in Vegas, and maybe we'll have a few more available on the website, you're going to want to go and check those out. But as you see here, and this is from our pals over at Collider, I say pals in a very loose way, but as you can see here, Dune Part 2 continues its quote-unquote box office rampage. So it's going to shatter box office records globally. I'm not sure what those are, but it's nearing 700 million in 45 days. The film's success is attributed to stellar reviews, incredible IMAX performance, yeah, a record, I think in the top 7 of all time, and a turning tide toward director-driven tentpoles. I don't think that's what drove this film. It's an interesting niche sci-fi adventure that was made a little more palatable to the masses. I don't know if I necessarily would credit Denis' interpretation and adaptation, because he broke the third film, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But now, well over a month and a half into its blockbuster theatrical run, Warner Brothers and Legendary's Dune Part 2 continues to set new benchmarks. The epic science fiction sequel delivered the seventh weekend haul for a March release at the domestic box office. That's a lot of words to give it a qualifying amount of praise. A very qualified amount of praise. Insane. So the movie clearly has more gas left in the tank. I would say a lot of movies do. But the problem is that you've got to feed the streaming beast. And that's been hitting them in the pocketbook for quite some time now. So Dune Part 2 grossed an estimated $4.3 million domestically this last weekend, and added another $7.2 million from overseas territories. So that's another $11 million. The domestic gross is $272. Not too bad. Overseas, it's over $400 million. That's not bad. So cumulatively, you're looking at $684 million. I anticipate this can get just around the corner to $700 million and stop right in the wheelhouse that I anticipated it being in. So it's basically been, according to them, a resounding success. I'm not sure I agree with the characterization, but it did very well. It was produced on a reported $190 million budget with a break-even point estimated around $500 million. That seems reasonable, but I think the budget's a little higher than 190, but who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, $500 million, reasonable break-even. This actually guarantees a Dune third film. That's right. It's going to show up. We're going to get to see it. And Timothée Chalamet will be doing wonders for Warner's once again. Well, and also Legendary, because, they're going to take their cut. But Villeneuve's already been working on the third film based on the novel Dune Messiah. that's going to introduce some real problems. But once again, just a quick review of where the box office fell. About midway through the cone. That's good, right? The cone of happiness or the cone of sadness, depending upon what side of this tan area you are with the yellow line. And it did pretty well, but I'm looking at numbers that suggest to me this will wrap around 700 million and call it a day. So let's get on to the fact that, as I mentioned, Dune 3 is confirmed. And this came all the way back on April 4th. There was no denying that this was going to be called into play if the film performed even just a little bit. So with it being officially in the works, what's going to happen? Well, things very different from this book. First and foremost, according to this article from Screen Rant, Dune 3 will have to be very different after one massive book change in part 2, which I agree. And it came right at the end of the film, where they wildly deviated in the third act from, well, the characters and characterizations, as I said in my review from the very beginning. And it's going to be far, far removed from the book sequel. I think you can consult experts like Nerd Cookies and her lore on this that will astound you at how different this will have to be. There's many character relationships that are wildly different from the source material. Channy's altered role in Dune 2 sets up a distinct story for 3, departing from the original book. Yes, a lot. Keeping Channy safe is going to remain crucial for Paul in decision-making, potentially shaping the future direction of Dune 3. So, when you get to the end, the movie largely succeeds in tackling these dense subjects. Character deviation means that Dune 3's approach to the next chapter of the story will depart from Herbert's blueprint. Despite dropping key Dune characters like Thufir Hawat and Alea Atreides, who showed up in a weird, beach scene. Part 2 follows many of the same story beats as the novel. After joining the Fremen, yada, 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 yada. This tracks with Herbert's original story. However, the key change to one of Paul's most important relationships alters the dynamics in the movie and promises a very different Dune 3. Dune can't do the same story as the book after changing Chani's role. I said this at the time, that this was going to be a problem. And it is, because it's going to have to be crafted out of whole cloth, which is incredibly irritating. To deviate that wildly means now we're going to get a story that will be very female-centric outside of the very female-centric elements of this film, or these books and films in the first place. So the film treats Zendaya's character, Chani, very differently. In the novel, she and Paul have a relatively simple romance with little evidence that Chani doubts Paul, either as a partner or a leader. By contrast, Chani is a much more dynamic character in the movie, acting not just as a love interest for Paul, but also as a tutor and one of his few prominent critics among the Fremen. Yeah, because that's what you want. Your partner that's supposed to trust and support you, challenging you all the time. It's sold in this modern age as a good thing. Back when this book was written and when normal society existed, that wasn't necessarily the case, especially not in front of others. So eventually, in his moment of triumph after defeating Fayed Rautha, Chani turns and abandons him. A completely different ending from the Dune novel, where she stays by his side. So these changes help make her character more interesting, according to Screen Rant. I think it makes her character more modern in a way that is offensive to anybody who appreciated the books. Anyway, by abandoning Paul for the desert, her character transforms Dune 3's potential story, forcing it to radically deviate from Dune Messiah. The key reason for this is Paul and Chani's relationship is central, both personally and politically, to not just the novel's plot, but the entire direction of the Dune saga. So moving forward, it will be Dune in name only. And I'm sick and tired of those stories. Aren't you? So we'll see Paul ruling over the Imperium as a divine emperor, using his powers of prescience to choose the ideal course of action. Although married to Urulon, I cannot say her name, the match is a matter of pure political expedience. He and Chani are still together and form the true marriage at the heart of the Empire. However, the pair do not have any children, as Urulon has secretly been giving Chani a contraceptive. Paul is aware of this, but he also knows that as soon as Chani has children, she will die. He is determined to preserve their time together, but knows that doing so extends the holy war that's leaving a bloody trail across the stars. Sounds interesting, doesn't it? In other words, there's not going to be the same levels of tension which are key to Dune Messiah. And, of course, you will have Paul not dealing with some of the challenges that he has to during the course of that particular story. So what will happen to Chani after Dune 2's ending is a key question. It's possible that Chani is already pregnant with Paul's children, prompting her to return to his side. This future seems unlikely, as it would mean ignoring Anna Taylor-Joy's Aaliyah Atreides story, but could yet be a compelling catalyst in changing her mind. If she does return to Paul for this or any reason, this could lay the groundwork for a more traditional adaptation of Dune Messiah. However, whatever direction Villeneuve takes, Dune Part 2's ending means that Chani's character already has a different path from her book counterpart. I don't know that this is going to go the way that anybody would want. Villeneuve has the power to do anything he wants to with this story, unfortunately. And the changes at the end of Book 2 and the second film, or I should say the second film, not Book 2, but the second film leading into Dune Messiah, are going to be, well, a problem. Regardless of my opinion on this, I'm more interested in what yours are. This film, obviously, Dune Part 2 was incredibly successful, as I've mentioned many times during the course of this video. But will the third film be as compelling and interesting, or will it draw in the audience that these films have already? Will it just be popular because it's the wrap-up of a story, a three-parter, a trilogy? Or is it possible that the people who've read through the books are going to be looking for something that this film won't be? Speaking of Dune 3, I'm curious if anybody's as upset as I am that this got changed, or are you more genuinely interested in a slightly different story or a wildly different story than what was outlined in the book Dune Messiah? Your thoughts are compelling, so let me know them down in the comments section below. Also, quick reminder, as I said, we're targeting that 25K goal. So if you wouldn't mind, if you look down there and you notice that that little button is red and says subscribe, please click it. It's free and it will help the channel get to that 25K sub goal that we set out to conquer in the month of April. Hopefully we can do that. With your help, I believe we can. And on that note, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya.